What role does self-worth play in relationships, and why is it so overlooked, do you think, about these conversations about love?
Yeah. So self-worth is incredibly important for relationships, how you show up in relationships, what kind of partner you attract, or what kind of partner you're in a relationship with. Because ultimately, right, it's the worth that you're associating with yourself. And you can think about it in terms when that's what I do when I work with clients. If you imagine I gave you a piece of trash, how would someone how would they treat that piece of trash? And it would be, I don't want to have it. I'd rather throw it away. I don't need to keep it. I don't need to treat it very well. But then, in comparison to if I gave them a diamond, how would they treat that? How would they be with that? What would they want to do with that, right? They would want to keep it. They would want to keep it safe. They would want to treat it as something precious, right? And that's right. A piece of trash has a value, even if the value is very low, and a diamond has a value, right? And depending on the value that we associate with the thing, we treat it differently. So if
Yeah.
now your self-worth, the worth that you have for yourself, is low, and there are people who literally walk around with feeling and thinking about themselves that they are trash, they will put themselves into different relationships than someone who has an association or a worth association with themselves like a diamond, right? Then they will want to, right, when they treat themselves like a diamond, they will want their partner to do the same, right? So the self-worth, which I always like to bring it back, that's your perception of your self-worth, is incredibly important for whatever relationship you have, what the dynamics are, how your partner treats you, how you let your partner treat you. And my perception actually isn't that it's quite overlooked, but I think there's not so much importance placed on it. What I see very often, and maybe you've seen that the same way, that people, right, they switch from, okay, in my last relationship I was treated like this, so now I am aware of all of that, and now I set incredibly high standards how I want to be treated, and then someone calls that self-worth, but that's still not self-worth. That's now a compensation, right? How they see themselves on a deeper level still hasn't really been touched by that.
Yeah, fascinating point about what doesn't feel good if you've, and hearing this a lot. People move through relationships like the age I'm in. I'm around a lot of people that have been in relationships and have moved
Yeah,
out of them and know what they don't want anymore. So they use that as a
yeah,
reference point for people that do
yeah,
come in their lives, rather than actually understanding what got them into that relationship and why that happened in that way. Because I think
yeah,
I'd like to know what the buffer period is of like getting into a relationship and then deciding it's not serving me, not serving someone. Like I think around 3 months, and then you've got enough information to be like, okay, those things that happened, they're not mine, and I don't want to continue with them, rather than
yeah.
perpetuating the same thing.
There's always something to be gained, something to be learned from observing, okay, I'm in this relationship, I am with this person. Now I'm seeing something here. Maybe I see a pattern, maybe I see a behavior from the other person that doesn't work for me. If that happens once and you say, okay, this doesn't work, now I get into the next relationship, now the same pattern shows up, now it gets interesting because now the common denominator between the two relationships is you, right? Now, if that happens a third time, a fourth time, it's probably not about the other people that you meet, but it's probably something about you that this dynamic shows up. And we have an opportunity with that. And sometimes we only need one iteration Sometimes we need it a couple more times. That when people that keep meeting the same person with a different face,
Yeah.
there's there's something to be learned there.
Yeah. You talked about in one of your posts about chemistry and familiarity. So I
Yeah,
think that's a big aspect of how we relate and how we start to think we're choosing someone, but really we're just the attraction is that we are experiencing something very familiar, whether we
yeah,
got lots of as a child or didn't get enough of, or whatever it is. So could you speak a little bit about the chemistry aspect of a relationship? I've been thinking about it a lot
yeah,
because I think for the first time in my life, I've started to relate with someone who I don't have much chemistry with. And
yeah.
I'm very aware that I need to be I need to be cautious, maybe conscious of what the chemistry is. And so
Correct.
I've lent into it because I'm like, okay, maybe the chemistry isn't actually a healthy thing. So
Yeah, yeah,
could you speak on that? Because I think it's a fascinating subject.
yeah. So we have to differentiate between chemistry, because usually when people talk about chemistry, we can talk about two aspects. We can talk about one, how well someone matches with us, which is right. That's one aspect of chemistry that you can think about. The other one would be the feelings of butterflies or the feeling of I'm really drawn to this person. I really have a lot of feelings for them. The butterflies. And butterflies, right, that is that feeling of butterflies, that excitement is also very close to fear.
Yeah, excitement and
So
fear, they have the same response in the body, right?
they are the same thing, right? So now imagine you I always like to take an example, a woman that grows up in a family where the father, and I don't want this to happen to anyone, but where the father physically abuses the mom and perhaps even the children. Now, you would think a woman that experienced that would never get into a relationship later on in life where they find a partner that does the same. But it's usually exactly those women that attract a partner like that. And as much as someone consciously can say, I don't want a relationship like that, it's still something that the nervous system feels at home with, right? It's the familiarity aspect that you speak about. It's not a like it's our nervous system or our survival part doesn't really care about what's consciously good for us.
Yeah.
It cares about what it can deal with. Now it knows how to behave in situations like that, so it's drawn to that familiarity. And now that doesn't have to happen on that scale, but it can happen on a lower scale. If you, for example, you grew up with a mom or dad that wasn't as emotionally available as you wanted them, you will most likely attract someone like that in your relationships when you base it on I feel so drawn to them by those that feeling of butterflies, because that excitement, that fear that we are familiar with from back then. A healthy relationship, healthy relating, doesn't actually produce fear. It produces calmness. It produces presence, right? And then if you're really used to, right, I want to make sure that that person chooses me, I need to chase them or I need to make them available, which that's driven by fear, right? That is driven, even all the chemicals that happen in your brain. The amygdala starts firing. You have adrenaline, you have cortisol, norepinephrine running through your system. That can be your feeling of love that you're used to, and you will want to replicate that with a romantic relationship because that's what you're used to.
What's the
But
evolutionary
that's
benefit there? Why would that have been the template as a
it,
species?
it's so it is. I find it's very ridiculous, but it's saving energy
Yeah.
because you know how to behave in these situations. Your brain already knows what patterns to play to use, what behavior to produce, what to say. That's why sometimes we find ourselves in the same arguments that we witnessed our parents to have, or that we had with our parents or with our siblings. And then we have the same argument with a romantic partner. It's not a coincidence. That's because, well, I chose that same thing because I know how to be with that. We can see the same thing in business, in any area of life, where we tend to attract similar situations, or we tend to produce similar situations. And then you're like, why does this keep happening to me? Well, because there's something in you that's drawn to the familiarity of the situation. Again, you can consciously say, but I want a healthy relationship. And where you shared so vulnerably before, you're getting to know someone, and now you can see, I don't have that same feeling of chemistry there, and it's strange. That will be strange. And your system, you maybe don't know how to handle that. Someone that is very familiar with chaos, with fighting, that is an environment that's very chaotic. Someone that grows up in that environment is used to a higher level of stress. Now all of a sudden they get into a relationship where there's someone who's calm in conflict, who likes to talk things through, who's level-headed. Then you get into an argument with someone like that, or a conflict, and the other person is just steady and calm. That can be really scary to someone who doesn't know that. And that nervous system of that person could literally create a signal of, this is dangerous. Not because it actually is dangerous, but because you don't know that reaction. That's something you're not familiar with.
So what
And
then?
that it's foreign, it's weird.
So what then if the body is signaling some response to suggest that this isn't safe? What is the work then? And I'd also like to ask the question that for someone like me who's aware of
Yeah.
my patterns, someone who's aware, like a lot of people who listen to the podcast, they're going to be aware of their tendencies and their patterns in relationship. They've reflected, they've known things haven't served them. So they have this hypervigilance of like they're kind of looking out for it. So then they won't get
Yes.
into it. So but that's not the work. That's not never getting into a dynamic that doesn't serve you
I
because then
get
you're
it.
just avoiding, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's the big piece here is first awareness, to be aware of, hey, what is my pattern here? What am I prone to repeating, so that you can see that. Because now you may say, okay, all the past relationships that I was in, they followed a certain pattern, and that doesn't end well for me, or it doesn't work for me. Now I want to get into a different kind of relationship, but then you're looking out for things, you're looking out for the warning signs, or your body, as I mentioned before, says, this is dangerous. What is this? Because the other person doesn't react in a way that we know. And then now it's about curiosity, to notice over time what is happening when you lean in. Is there more calmness over time? Or is there more stress? Is there more fear? And a lot of people, a lot of reels, a lot of videos out there are speaking about a healthy relationship will make you feel calm and peaceful, and will help you to connect with intuition. So that's literally what you want to be looking for. Do I feel, is it calm? Is it peaceful? Right? Or am I on alert? Am I on alert? And even if you're on alert, what is that about? Am I on alert because I don't know what's happening, because very often we can start to project onto the other person. Right? That's the example that I gave earlier. Someone who grows up in an environment that's very chaotic, or maybe they had a father and mother that would erupt into anger, right? And before they would erupt, there's a moment of silence, of quiet building up of that anger. Now, someone gets into a relationship with someone who's actually calm. That person will think this calmness that I'm experiencing right now is the moment before they erupt,
Mm.
right? But that has nothing to do with the other person, actually. They could be calm, steady, peaceful, nothing going on for them. But because we bring our past into our current relationship, we could project that onto the dynamic,
Yeah,
which is very tricky, right? That's where the awareness really comes in. Like, what is actually happening? And I think it is really important to have one distinction. Your feelings are always valid, but they don't always reflect truth.
yeah,
And your feelings, that's the way that we learn to orient in this world. It's like an alarm system, but they don't always reflect what's actually going on. Sometimes we're scared because we bring our past into the moment, not because that's actually happening. And there we get to, yeah, reflect, self-reflect. What am I feeling here? Why am I feeling that? Does that reflect truth? Feelings, like, it's always valid, right?
hmm
Someone who grew up with a violent parent, that they feel more scared in a relationship, that's valid, makes sense. Right? We can have compassion for that. But it doesn't mean that the other person is violent too, or is abusive too. Right? So that's where we can bring in, okay, you feeling this? Does it reflect truth? And that's work, especially for someone who grew up with unsteady or unhealthy, abusive relationships.
Yeah, and this is where you come in because I can imagine well, I know actually, I can imagine. I know it's very hard to do this with just two people going back and forth when one's like, no, I'm sure this is happening. And like, of course you
Yeah.
would say that because you don't want this to happen. Or whatever the response is, do I trust the response? But then when there's someone else
Yeah.
actually saying, I don't think that's what they said, for
Yeah.
me, it just sounded like a standard question or whatever it might be. So it's so
Absolutely.
useful to be in the arena with others and friends and bring other people somewhat into the
Yes.
relational field, right? I
Yeah.
I think
The
presence,
mirrors.
yeah, the mirrors. The presence is really, I think, what we're talking about, right? The ability to be present to what is and not project what's happened before onto now, which we all do, and
Yeah.
it's kind of beautiful in a way.
Normal.
Um, but there's a great quote that says, I think I heard it from Peter Crone. He said, "We're all staring at our rearview mirror, wondering why we're bumping into shit. So we're
Yeah.
constantly like
Exactly.
focused on the past, and then wondering why
Yeah.
we keep getting it quote unquote wrong. And it's
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating mechanism, I guess, to yeah to really reveal like what is in the shadows, what are we
Yeah.
not, what are we not like bringing into our conscious mind. So yeah,
Correct.
presence, like how do we then become a bit more present to the reality instead of well the truth rather than the reality of our emotions.
Yeah. Well, by doing this work, by unpacking, because in order to be in the presence, and you took that quote from Peter Crone, you look into the rear mirror while you go forwards. So in order to be in the present, that the byproduct is or presence is the byproduct of letting go of looking into the rear view mirror.
Mm.
So understanding where are our tendencies to do that, because usually, and that is the insidious part, you said it yourself, we constantly project onto our partner, onto the people around us, onto the situations based on our past. Because that's the way that we learned to survive. It's very sad to see, but it's this is how we learn to survive, by just projecting the past onto what's happening. Because then we know how to behave. We distort the reality, and then we make it very simple for us to just repeat the same pattern. So now we have the opportunity to work through the stuff from our past, or to let go of that, because then you don't look into the rear view mirror anymore, you look straight ahead. And it is the reason why we look into the rear view mirror is because we don't want to experience that pain again. So if we let go of that pain, if we process that pain, if we relate to that pain differently, now there's nothing to fear anymore. Because like, oh yeah, I mean that happened, but actually that didn't really hurt me. Now that I can look at it differently, I understand it differently. Now I don't need to look out for it anymore. That's the real gem in all of that. That's why doing this work is so rewarding, because at the end, you'll be able to be so much more present because you're not looking into the rear view mirror anymore. And you can start creating, you can start being like following what you consciously want.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a good intro to little 101 of like the
Yeah,
basics of how we start creating the life we want in relationships, right? Um, give us
absolutely. Yeah.
give us some turning point moments for you in what was
Yeah.
like in your backstory and you know,
Yeah.
I think you know your full-time coaching and how you stepped into this work, you know, based on your
Yeah.
own experience.
So yeah, the just like for many people, there was a one relationship that ended several years ago, and at the end of that relationship, I stood there and I was wondering why did that happen? Because I felt like back in that relationship, I was doing so much, I was giving so much, I was trying to be the perfect boyfriend. And even though I felt like I was doing everything I possibly did, my partner still left. And then I went to a coach slash therapist myself and started looking at my own patterns, my own stuff. And 2 or 3, 4 weeks into the process, I had my first realizations, and I understood back then what I was driven by was the typical story of I'm not enough, which I tried to compensate for by being the perfect partner, by doing everything. And then when that collapsed for me, I had a huge moment of relief, and like I literally cried for hours because I felt such a joy. And in that very moment, I decided I want to bring that to other people, that moment, that realization, because I felt how much that had changed me. And then I was still working a corporate job back then. I decided to look into coaching. I decided to keep working with different people around the world to understand more about relationships, trauma, how to heal that. I healed more and more in myself, with myself, until I eventually made the jump to say, I'm gonna leave the corporate world behind me. I'll start doing this full time. And I'm always like wondering, looking back, how I made that decision back then, because I didn't know what was ahead of me. I just had a deep trust that it's gonna work out based on whatever. But I'm very happy that I made that step. But if I had known what came after that, I don't know if I had made that same decision the same way.
You've
But
just
it's
described
been an incredible.
You just described everyone's journey into like creating something. You have to be naive enough to start and have the discipline and surrender, right? Yeah. But
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
great. And you had that pull, you had that intuitive sense that you needed to really start to probably body the work you were learning so much about and provide that for others. It's
Correct.
like it's the hero's journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then relationships were always a great teacher for me. The relationships that I've been in along the way.
Hmm.
And yeah, I continue to learn about myself. I've always had coaches and therapists working with me so that I understand more about me and my parents, that I can help others more.
Yeah. What were some of the manifestations of you not feeling enough in that relationship?
So, first of all, as I said, I was trying to compensate for that, not just even in the relationship, but I always I wanted to demonstrate, I wanted to convince my partner that I am a good choice, that I am yeah, that I am valuable, that I am enough. So I did all the chores that I could think of. I tried to do everything to please her. I I swallowed down my own needs. I didn't speak up about needs. I avoided conflicts totally. Uh, Also until the point that I blew up. Right? I got into because I kept swallowing my anger, my resentment, until at some point I would erupt in anger. I wasn't ever physically abusive, but I was still getting loud. And so I could see that there were unhealthy dynamics at play. And I was the good boy, I was people pleasing, I was not voicing my needs,
Yeah. I bet you didn't know you
creating
had them.
conflict. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also didn't stand up for myself. I didn't have any boundaries. Like saying, "Hey, this is not okay for me." I remember my ex-partner at the time, she was texting with other men while she was in the relationship with me. And when I spoke up about that, or when I said, "Hey, I don't really feel comfortable around that," and when I heard that I'm just too sensitive or I should be able to handle that, I believed that. Right? And I tried to do something about it and harden up or not be as jealous. I totally neglected my own feelings with that.
Mm.
So I'm looking back, I feel like I am the poster child for being the good boy, the people pleaser, doormat in a relationship. And exactly because of that, I feel so incredibly happy that I started doing this work. Because seeing that shift in my relationships, but also in my personal life, is incredible. Because as I said, I also had that showed up with these patterns in my job, but I also showed up like that in my friendships, in my family. And I wasn't just scared that my partner at the time constantly could leave, but I had the same fear towards my friends that they wouldn't want to be friends with me anymore if I don't provide any value to them, if I don't help them.
Oof,
So
it's
that,
a big one.
yeah, there was a lot of pressure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's huge,
Mhm.
man. I
Yeah.
remember in a last a long quite a long relationship with someone for
Yeah.
8+ years.
Yeah.
Had a few breaks here and there, but yeah, it was most of my adult life up until 3 years ago. And I remember her asking me, like, what are your needs in this relationship? Like, I always felt her support. Like, she wanted me to just like show up and like, you do have needs. Like, what are they? And I just remember
Yeah.
say like, just completely putting her down and saying, I just don't think in that way. Like, I just don't. That's not
Yeah.
how I would like. That's not how I frame things. Or, And I'm just so avoidant to like actually register that
Yeah.
I don't know what they are because I don't know who I am because I don't
Yeah.
know what to do. But yeah, it was,
Yeah.
and I can imagine like, well, for me, it pulled all my resources, the amount of energy
Yeah.
that's consumed by that inner tension or that just needing to constantly be a certain way because there's fear, whether it's
Yeah.
consciously aware or not, right? It's still like it's a lot of energy being used.
Everywhere, yeah. And then all the distractions came in. So back then I was smoking, I was drinking, at least when I had the chance, then I would drink on the weekend, but I would also drink almost every weekend. And then not just a bit, but I would drink until I'm drunk or blackout drunk. So because all of that pressure, all that tension needed to find some release. And that was my way of coping with it. And it also showed up in my body. I had a lot of the pressure that I felt of having to perform, of having to be someone that doesn't have any needs. I felt a lot of pressure in my stomach. So I had acid reflux or gastritis, allergies. A lot of stuff was showing up in my body even as a result of all of that stress. So then now having been on that journey, I still sometimes drink a beer or a glass of wine, but I don't feel the need, I don't feel the pull, I don't feel happier when I drink, which in the past definitely was the case.
Mm.
And that's all these distractions, these things that I needed, now I don't need them anymore. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's how the tension has to show up somewhere and has to be released somewhere, please.
for sure. How you said about the awareness that there was that, yeah, it sounds like that really owning of what was true. Like, how far
Yeah,
did the awareness get you? Because for
yeah,
some people, that just changes everything, and then that
yeah,
new belief or that new way of relating to yourself, the ownership of like this is really real, can manifest in behaviors, actions, and then just
yeah,
cascade into better things from there. But like,
yeah,
how much was it the awareness, the root cause, and then
yes.
what was needed after that for you to fully like,
Correct.
not to say that you're healed, but like transcend and transmute that energy.
Yeah, so for me, the where I would go, for me it was everything, but this was one part, right? That was one of the stories that I was in, that I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And for me it was a distinct moment because I when it dawned on me, it wasn't in a therapy session. It was me sitting at work and I was preparing a PowerPoint presentation. And I remember building that PowerPoint presentation. It was going to go to some of the top managers of the company, and I was like, I want to convince that guy that I'm good, like that I'm a good employee and I'm a valuable member of the workforce. And then for a moment, I just sat there and I was wondering, why am I actually doing that? Why do I need to convince him that I'm a good employee? Like, what does that do for me? And I just noticed, okay, when I convince him that I'm a good valuable employee, then for a moment I believe it. And then I thought, well, but why did I give that guy the power to decide over that? And also that means I gave him the power. So what if I just take that back? And instead of letting him decide if I'm a good valuable employee, why don't I just do that? And I just saw for myself, oh my God, it was never about what that guy thinks. It was always about what I'm thinking. And I've always thought I'm not enough. And for me, it just clicked.
Yeah.
And then I was, I closed the presentation. I went upstairs. It was during COVID time, so nobody was in the office. Good, because I had tears running down my face, happiness. And then I stood on the roof of that company and was just, the sun was shining. I remember texting my mom, uh, summer has begun or whatever. I was texting, and for me there wasn't anything needed after that. I reminded myself of that moment, and I remember there was a friend who I talked about these things for quite a while. And then I went to him and I wanted to explain to him what happened and tried to explain it for him that he could have the same breakthrough. And I noticed I'm not getting through to him. So then that's why I decided, okay, I need to find out how I can give that to other people.
Mm.
But for me, to come back to your question, it, the awareness, seeing it, truly seeing it, there wasn't anything needed for that story that it could translate into a different way of living for me. Because I really saw it. I saw that I was the one who created that story, who held on to it, and finally can also let go of that. And yes, there were feelings inside of my body that told me otherwise. It said, oh no, no, Sven, we still feel like we're not enough. But for some reason, I still could manage with my mind to understand. Yeah, but that's just a feeling. That's the conditioned feeling. Doesn't mean that it's true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, awareness was everything, and I feel I've done a lot of modalities. I've done a lot of stuff that's in the industry. For me, the number one tool, or if it even is a tool, is awareness. To understand, really see, okay, what is the story that I'm repeating here? What is the story that I'm stuck in? Who do I think I am that this problem shows up, or that this is here for me? And
Yeah.
then stepping out of that. That's not easy. It's I'm not saying this is an easy task. It's simple, but it definitely isn't easy.
Yeah. Great
But
distinction.
yeah, for me, the awareness is everything.
Hmm. The It can work both ways, right? Top down, bottom up.
Yeah,
I think we have all different ways into the, let's say, healing work. But
yeah,
whatever does work, whatever moves the needle, and sometimes that's through the body. It's sometimes like really getting
yeah,
into the emotions and letting them create more capacity in the body, and to then
yeah,
be able to be with the story a bit more and then change that. But you're right. It's created with the mind, and it somewhat needs to be yeah, like understood first. Because if we're going to meet people where they're at, that's with the mind. Like
yeah,
it's actually been somewhat challenging to invite people to feel things when they are so in their heads. It's like, well, we're not even there yet. It's like
yeah,
yes, you can't solve the same problem on the level it was created, but also you can, because that can be
yeah,
a way into it. It's a doorway. And we very much live in the head. So if you want to meet people where they're
yeah,
at, like the head is the place to we put these constructs and these beliefs and these stories in
yeah,
place for
yeah.
adaptive, safe, secure, protective mechanisms, right? So yeah,
Correct.
it's important to speak to that, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's a great brain. The head is a great survival tool, but it doesn't equip us to live a fulfilled or meaningful life. Because it's always going to come. Living in the head is it's always fear. Right? We always go into the head because there's some sort of fear that we're trying to avoid. So if you live in your head, cut off from your feelings, then hey, I mean it is a more miserable experience. It's a life that's based on fear, that's driven by fear. So yeah, getting someone back into their body, into the presence of what's actually happening. I think there's a beautiful, I don't know who said that. I've heard it a million times, but the longest journey is the one from your head to your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the longest distance.
For sure. I hear it week to
Yeah.
week in the arenas that I'm
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
But it
Would be
always,
interesting to find out who actually said that.
I know. Yeah, God. I think it's so important though. It's so important.
Yes.
There was the recent podcast that everyone is somewhat talking about around Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy, and you've got this
Yeah.
kind of ultra achiever, like real, like mentally strong and capable and data driven, almost like has mastered the science of business, and it is
Yeah.
that, it is a
Yeah.
science, but the art of fulfillment, which Tony Robbins talks about, is a bigger piece. It's the fulfillment.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, he did get some kickback, I think, of like trying to meet him with the also the methods and the mental constructs, I think, but he invited him to connect back to his joy and his inner
Yeah.
child. I think that's what he was really trying to get at. It's like
Yeah.
what does little Alex need? So my
Yeah.
question
The
to
anabolic Alex is how
the
they refer
anabolic,
to it.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's his, you can tell it's his childlike self. It's the younger part of him that really often gets forgotten about, right? I'm wondering if you did much inner child work, visualization, because it features a lot in the spaces that I create with others
Yeah.
to really meet that part and the one that experienced that pain or disconnection or had to show up in a certain way to get along to go along. So
Yeah. I have, of course, I've done a lot of inner child work, connecting to the parts that were hurting, are hurting, to yeah, I think the one of the most valuable pieces that came with that is because I was okay with letting, right, the parts of me experience the hurt that I didn't experience back then. It also allows me to feel good about expressing that nowadays. Not just the availability to emotions, to all my emotions, right? The whole range of it was absolutely necessary to do that for me. To yeah, give myself the permission to cry about the fact that I didn't have the relationship with my brother that I wanted, that I didn't have the relationship with my mother that I wanted, with my dad, with school, with everyone. And there was a lot of sadness that I was carrying around, and to let myself experience that. And I've always been a very sensitive child, sensitive man. I'm still to this very day, I'm very sensitive. Um, I, I, I just feel emotions very quickly. And I've, for a lifetime, I've always suppressed them. For the lifetime up until now. But yeah,
mm,
going there, crying, screaming, done it all. Yeah,
yeah, I hear that. Um,
yeah.
the what do you see is really the common thread between the people you work with? Do you generally work with a lot of men that are trying to be good men, but they're not focused on being good at being a man, which I feel is important distinction. Like
Yeah.
you talked about this, the archetype of the nice guy, which
Yes.
I've definitely been. Is that the main male people you work with, or is it other aspects?
Yeah, I would say that is a common archetype that I work with. I actually work more with women
Hmm.
because I feel, it might be just me by my perception, but generally I feel there are more women in this space doing the healing work than there are currently men out there doing this.
Why do you think
Maybe
that
your
is?
experience is different. You only work with men, right?
Yeah,
Well, I think because women are more in tune with their feelings,
yeah,
and women yeah, just generally they are better at holding space for each other, listening to each other. Men, just as the typical archetype, uh, they wouldn't talk about feelings. They wouldn't even know what their son or daughter does on the weekend or who their friends are. Right? It's like the common or the typical. I'm working. I'm rational. I'm doing my stuff that I need to do. Feelings are stuffed down. So I think that's why women are quicker to. They are just a bit ahead, I would say. They're more in tune with what's happening. But yeah, in general, I'd say a lot of good boys, good girls as an archetype would come to me. But I've helped a range of people. I in the beginning I thought also people that would categorize more as an anxious attachment would work with me. I've also worked with a lot of people that are avoidant or that have a disorganized way of showing up in relationships. I've seen many things by now. But yeah, if I would say if there's one, yeah, one person, a persona that I've worked with the most, it is the good guy, the someone that feels like they are not enough, that want to compensate, that are really good in their job, that uh, are really good as friends, but never quite feel fulfilled.
Yeah, and how do you work with them to really get into that? I know you talk about inner freedom
Yeah,
quite a lot. You know, it's going to be
yeah,
associated with feeling free.
yeah. I always look at what's in the way for them. So when we work, the entrance is always what's the current problem that they are dealing with, which then I take them back to why they are dealing with the problem that they are dealing with. Like if, for example, as the example, someone who keeps compensating but doesn't feel like their partner is giving back, of course I could help them and say, well, stop giving so much, but that doesn't really help them, right? Because they are doing that for a reason. So I go with them. Like, why do you do that in the first place? Where did you
Mhm.
learn that? Which invariably will go back to their childhood and will go back to how they see themselves, what they think of themselves, and that's what I help them see. And then when we break down these pieces, the the inner freedom or the inner freedom and also the felt freedom is the result of that. And then, of course, sometimes there's a little adjustment needed because
Mhm.
someone may go away from one session and feel incredible. And then next week they're like, oh, but I felt so good for 3, 4 days. And then now I feel the same because there's maybe a different iteration of it or another story that we get to look at. And unfortunately, I wish it was just that one thing that we need to look at or that we get to look at. But there is a variety of things that can stand in our way. Our mind is quite creative in that, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is the single biggest aspect of creating freedom for someone? What do you think? Responsibility comes to mind. I don't know how you'd
I
answer
mean,
that.
you definitely need to take responsibility, ownership for yourself, and because without that, you can't change anything. If you say, oh, well,
I'm not
I'm like that
responsible.
because
Yeah.
of yeah, I'm like that because of my mom, then now your mom needs to change, otherwise you're still stuck. I feel that's what you need to start with, taking responsibility, taking ownership. And then I feel like there's a, a, a big part that's related to trust. Because
Mhm.
I feel there's an aspect where we get to trust that whatever happened actually did happen for us. To understand there's a lesson in that somewhere. If you're more cynical and if you're like that happened out of chance or because I don't know, this world is cruel, then it's really hard to find a lesson in that, right? Because then it happened because it's cruel. It didn't happen because there's something in it for me. So
Yeah.
I feel trust is another really, really big one and a tricky one.
Yeah. I think allowing people to be curious about seeing things differently. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
like the biggest problem is people thinking there shouldn't be a problem.
yeah,
And again,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the entitlement, and I mean that drive, or that we feel like there shouldn't be a problem. We could also say that is helpful in a way because it helps us tackling the problems. It helps us striving for something better, for striving for more. Without that, we as even as a human race, as a society, we wouldn't grow. So it's the desire to not have problems that keeps us moving forward. But of
mm,
course, it's if we really want a life without a problem, that in itself can be a block because you're never going to get there. I just recently had a conversation
yeah.
like that with a client who yeah, we were talking about desires and how he said um, like whenever I have a desire and I fulfill that desire, I'm still not happy afterwards. But I want to be happy when I
Mm,
fulfill the desire. But it's the nature of it. If you fulfill a desire now in the very moment that you fulfilled it, now you want it again. Or you don't want it to stop. So you you already have pain because you fulfilled the desire. So it's part of the game to find acceptance with the fact that fulfilling a desire will always lead to pain. But if you resist that pain part, then you're in perpetual pain.
say that again. So fulfilling the desire would always
Yeah,
lead to pain.
will always lead to pain. And then if you don't want that pain, now you're in perpetual pain because it's inevitable. And eat some good food, then where the body goes, it's just very automatic. I want that again, or I'm scared that it doesn't happen again. The pain part is already there the moment that you fulfilled it.
Yeah.
Having sex, taking a drug, it's always there. Fulfilling a desire leads to pain.
Hmm.
It's it's the same. It's the same. It's two sides of the same coin. I think
There's a
Krishnamurti also said that.
Yeah, there's a great quote from Mark Manson. He says, like, wanting a positive experience is a negative experience. Accepting a negative experience is a positive experience. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It speaks to the same thing, and the power of acceptance of yeah, accepting the quote unquote negative thing as part of life. It's absolutely necessary. It's life and death. It's light and shadow. It's something positive and something negative. It's desire and it's pain. That's how it's a natural part of life.
For
And then
sure.
yeah. And I think that's why the becoming available to bring it back to inner child work or to working with emotions. That's why coming to a place where we're okay, where we can allow ourselves to be with pain, to feel pain. Now we're also opening up ourselves more to the positive side. I always, when people, for example, which is a common pattern, when they come to me and they say, this is just one possible explanation, but someone saying, well, I only attract people that are emotionally unavailable, that don't want to commit. And they wonder, why is that happening? Because I really want a healthy relationship. I want someone who commits to me. But then when we work together, and I usually see they don't have a big capacity to be sad or to allow themselves to be sad. Now, right, their body will say, I don't have a proof for that, but it just makes logical, it makes a lot of sense. Their body says, okay, I can't be with sadness, I can't be with pain. So I can't get into a relationship with someone that I can actually attach to, because if they leave, now I have to feel pain, I have to feel sadness.
Yeah.
But because I'm not available to that, I can't think about a relationship like that. I need to find someone who doesn't commit. So enter someone who's emotionally unavailable. They won't commit. So you figured out the problem. But it's actually because you can't be with your own sadness. And then you wonder, why do I keep attracting the same kind of person? Because you're actually not available yourself. You're not available to sadness. You can also be not available to love. That's the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds similar to what I navigated around finding faults with someone,
Yeah.
which is a common trait for avoidance and looking for the things to justify why I don't need to commit, which is
Yeah.
it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
So it would
Yeah.
be anything from like some someone doing a yoga pose that I didn't think was optimal, and then I would like it would be that like the on that scale. I'm doing it
Yeah.
again. I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
I'd be aware of
Yeah.
it, and it would some
Yeah.
for me the awareness just created more tension and disconnection in my body and myself because then I would go into this like I shouldn't feel this, and
Yeah.
that's it's
Yeah.
also a piece to the puzzle of like I just created loads of shame and like
Yeah.
I then started to develop a story that I was the problem. So I'm noticing things, oh,
Yeah.
they're being clumsy or they're not being responsible. Like finding these faults of like the flaws of being a human and then like
Yeah.
then me developing a relationship to me finding the faults, knowing
Yeah.
that they're not justified. So like maybe it's
Yeah.
I'm getting triggered constantly, but I know that's not that doesn't warrant the emotional reaction. This
Yeah.
circumstance does not warrant it. So
Yeah.
then I had to like years of just like sending love to that part of me that is doing this process again. And
Yeah.
it's hard
Yeah.
because I'm also wanting a functional relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
it
that's
takes
the
revealing
old
that, right?
pattern.
Like
Absolutely.
I have to create that space, like a real, like I have to have a dedicated time where I know I'm going to be able to share these things. But then, then they start to take it personally and it's not what they want. So it does require like the two to tango, right? It requires the other part,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the other partner to then start to like, okay, I'm going to listen to this. It's not about me. And that often happens. We create these
Correct.
points. Yeah. So yeah,
And
maybe
then the other person.
it starts to trigger their like avoid
Correct. Yeah.
insecurities and then more
Yeah.
anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's that part of the work to understand this is if they say if they point out something about me and I start to take that personal and I start to say, well, you should need to stop saying this, doing this. Now you can start to see the own pain. If we were in a relationship, for example, Chris, and you would point out these things, my past versions, I could definitely see getting defensive or trying to argue with you, and but seeing, hey, what you're communicating, if that triggers me, that's my part to look at.
Mm.
It's not up to me to tell you to not say that or to not bring it up, but to look at myself and yeah, be able to listen to you, not filter what you're saying through my own lens and making you wrong for it. Because then I'm not with you, then I'm with myself. Which again, that's why it's so important to look at what's happening with me. Now I don't need to tell you to shut up. I can actually be with you. I can give you the space to talk about it, which then most likely actually opens up the space for you to let go of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah.
even that, right, the avoidance or this pattern that you're talking about, is also very often an adaptation because that space wasn't there for you in the past. To bring up something like that, space for your own emotions, space for your own feelings, without being made wrong for it.
Yeah.
Now, if you get that space, that can actually be a healing experience in itself.
I honestly know that the most healing is that I've ever experienced is through a relationship where I was just loved from a woman beyond belief. Like I didn't even know it was possible for someone to
Yeah,
hear my story and my challenge and just be accepted and loved. And I think that's the most healing thing for any man is to be like, it's okay. I don't need
yeah,
this to change. I love you anyway. And the story that comes
yeah,
to mind is when I was experiencing an incredible amount of jealousy. I was jealous at every interaction, every conversation, every touch, every like gaze that was a little bit longer than a friend. And I w-
yeah,
I went to a festival and I got back after and I just said I need to talk to you and went to the park and she said, "Yeah, and the preparation was to break up because I was like, there's no way this is sustainable. I'm just gonna completely like just this is gonna be so challenging for them, and they're gonna not
yeah,
want to be with me." But I shared this
yeah,
stuff. I was like, I'm just so triggered. I'm so jealous, and I can't seem to move past it. And they just went,
yeah,
"Thank you, like
yeah,
appreciate you telling me." And that was it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's wild, right?
Yeah,
And nothing to fix, nothing to change about it. Okay, you're jealous. And the next one could be, I'll take that into account, into
yeah,
consideration next time. I didn't know that it leaves you feeling that way.
yeah, yeah. What do you need?
Yeah. And it's also beautiful that you went and shared it with her.
Mm,
Because without that, you could also have just packed your stuff and said, this is it. But part of the healing was also that you shared it and gave you the experience of actually
mm.
being heard.
Yeah, totally.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why this work is, yeah, I mean, can it be done alone, you know? What's
Oh, I
the
don't think so. I think alone. And even when you notice something or you notice a pattern, you understand what's happening. I think the healing I feel the healing really then happens when you are in relationship. That doesn't mean in a romantic relationship, but when you are relating to someone and you experience it differently than
Mm,
before. So in your experience, to just be heard, not made wrong for it, now you have that visceral experience of, wow, that's what it feels like. And it feels like love. That is the healing moment. So I think the healing actually then happens again in relationship. And that can also be with a therapist or a coach.
mm,
That's where the healing happens. And I don't think, again, that's what I referred to earlier as the mirror. You need some sort of mirror. Very often it's another person, a coach or a therapist that is trained to listen to or listen for these things. But it can also be a journal. Some people really find help in journaling, putting their thoughts down and then reading them and noticing. For example, I've many times I've recorded a voice message to myself and then listened to it and was shocked to hear it what I said
yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm very good at hearing and listening, and then through that it's yeah externalizing our thoughts, being able to have it being listened to or listen to it yourself. I
Mm,
think we need something like that to heal. We need relationship to heal.
yeah. If there was one thing you could get everyone to do, what would it be? What would the like maybe an practical tool or an aspect of a daily pursuit? What would one thing be that maybe you do?
I think it would be to open up about something. So find someone that can listen without judgment and open up to them about something that you haven't opened up about,
Mm.
that you maybe feel scared or feel shame to talk about. Because it's
Yeah.
incredible to experience how someone else may have experienced the same, something similar, and to just be met with that understanding of, yeah, I get that you feel that way, and I would feel the same way if I were in your shoes. I feel that's one of the most healing things you can ever experience in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would that be for you, out of curiosity,
Gonna
if you have
say
something?
what the thing that I don't want to talk about. No.
No, 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 God. Not putting you on the spot here on the
No,
podcast.
I'm
No,
open to it though. I was
no, like
thinking,
if
I was
there's,
like,
if there's,
I was thinking like, let's do it. But yeah, this is the invitation that I do tentatively, depending on the context and the environment, like offer and try and make space for, like that kind of broad aspect of what's the one thing that's holding you back from being more present here, or that's challenging in your life, or the yeah,
yeah,
just something, and giving some space for that, like the workshops, the retreats. It's all about like these permission slips
yes,
that we can start giving each other to just start revealing our experience just a little bit more. And it is
yeah,
the most supportive. It is the most, it's probably the most integrative as well. Like there's so many opportunities to do that, and it's up to us to do it,
yeah,
and create the necessary space for that. Like it always surprises me how, and it's absurd to even name it because it's so obvious, but we all share so much of the root causes of our
yeah,
challenges. And
absolutely.
when we start to reveal that, it's just it's medicine, because so
It
much
is.
of living in London, it's like, where's the humanity? It feels so radical to the life I was living when I was traveling and having very vulnerable, authentic experiences, going from retreat to retreat to now being
Yeah,
plonked in the East London. It's like
yeah,
where are we going to like really speak our truth and our challenge? Because the connection is not as deep. It's not as normalized. And yeah, there's much I could
yeah,
say about that, but I think you understand. But yeah, creating
yeah.
more for
It's
ourselves.
all about it's all about actual intimacy, and intimacy begins when you break down that wall and yeah, be intimate with yourself and the other person and vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah, what would mine be? My big. I think it's really
I'm
important.
like I'm yeah, I'm asking about your tool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
asking you to. You're good. Good.
Yeah. I I would say, well, to be honest, I'm not going to shy away from the opportunity to do that. I'd say at the moment I've been really focused on doing like the do mode,
Yeah,
the action mode, and really like it's really somewhat embarrassing, I think, because I have so much of my work and my lifestyle and what I portray and say, my all my work is based on embodying what I, like you, like what you know to be true and know is needed.
yeah,
So if I'm
yeah,
not doing that, then I'm a fraud. I have that
yeah.
narrative at the moment. So I went, going for a walk seems like a radical act. Like in the sun without my phone seems like a radical act. And
Yeah.
there's some like there's a level of like, wow, like where am I at if that's the case right now? So
Yeah.
I'm really being with that at the moment, and just acknowledging that I just need to make changes, and
Yeah.
healthy addiction to my phone, and just really wanting to be in mission mode, but bypassing
Yeah.
the necessary human needs to make
Yeah.
all the work sustainable and integrity. So yeah, that's definitely where I've been at.
You're still a human.
Oh yeah,
After all this work, you're still a human.
not transcended the
Yeah,
human experience yet.
not yet. No.
Yeah, yeah, just I guess we can wrap up. For me, it would be like getting those physical needs met. I think if anyone's going to do anything, what I do see is lot of people, yeah, really wanting to do this work, but from a place that's not like getting their human needs met.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Irony after what I just shared, but it's like really drinking enough water, getting out in the sunlight, nourishing food, movement,
yeah,
practice daily, and just really getting the natural needs of what it is for a human to thrive. So getting that,
yeah.
yeah,
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
beautiful,
another
man.
one that just comes to me is um, just that one question, or to take it even deeper, to stop lying to ourselves.
Yeah,
And what am I pretending not to know, or what am I pretending not to see? I think that's always a big one to ask yourself that, because we all know where our stuff is. We all do.
yeah, great
To get
question.
real. Yeah,
Questions are more powerful than answers.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Thank you so much for this. This has been, yeah, really nourishing. Felt really present with you, and yeah, just celebrating the work you're doing with
Yeah.
couples and in relationship work. I think it is. If life is about the people we spend the time with, then it's all about
Yeah.
relationship. And that's been a big mission of the podcast. It's such the relational pillar, how we relate to ourselves and
Yeah.
others is a huge pillar of the podcast. So thank you for coming on and yeah, and sharing your work and your challenges and your growth edges and yeah, what you've been
Thank
able
you.
to do with that. So thank
Thank
you.
you. You're welcome, and thank you very much for creating this beautiful space and the way that I mean, the moment that you came onto the call, the quietness, the calmness that you radiate, and the beautiful space you create with this, your questions. It's amazing to be here, and was a pleasure and honor to do this with you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Sven. Yeah, beautiful. I wish you the best, man. And where can people find you and work with you and everything else?
And you can find me on Instagram, Sven_Loss, literally like the loss. And website, same thing, svenloss.com, in this case without the underscore. And yeah, that's where they can find all the information about me and my work, the programs I have.
Hmm.
And I'm looking forward to connect.
Yes. Beautiful, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.